Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at the Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi, mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. I'm super excited to have our very special guest with us, Laura Caparrotti, who is the President and Artistic Director of KITheater Italy Theater, because today we are going to go through a journey of the first iterations of the Italian theater in America, through the actors of today's theater in New York, thanks to her latest productions, Tutti, In Scena. Ma prima, pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Benvenuta Laura, benvenuta al programma.
Grazie, grazie e salve a tutti.
So just a little bit of a background of our connection. I guess maybe we share a mutual, maybe even Facebook group where a couple of months ago, I saw Laura's post to say, I did a documentary about Italian theater in New York City. And that little post triggered a lot of curiosity on my end. I was able to get in touch with Laura, not knowing that she was also from Rome, and over this past Christmas, we would also share a beautiful meal together to get to know oneself, one another in person. But a little bit about Laura. She's the founding artistic director of the main Italian theater company in New York, Kairos Italy Theater, and of In Scena, Italian Theater Film Festival New York, the first Italian theater festival to take place in all 5 New York boroughs. And also she inaugurated the onstage, the first American Theater Festival in Rome as an associate director. She has many different titles under her belt. She is indeed bridging a lot of the cultural activities between Italy and the United States. And recently, the project that triggered my curiosity was her documentary that received also the prestigious award by the Italian Americans, by the Russo brothers, which is Tutti, In Scena. Laura, let's actually go back in time. Roma, New York. Can you tell us a little bit what brought you to the States? And let's embark on this memory journey.
So it was 1993. I danced since I was little, and so my dance school at the time was offering classes in English and in dance classes in New York City. They were actually offering it in New York, London, or Paris. It was 3 weeks. In applying on those classes, you were getting a certain amount of hours of English and a certain amount of hours of dance. And so my mom, who is not with us anymore, she used to say that she said, oh, you went to London already. Oh, let me say that London and New York, they had the jazz style, which at that time I was doing a lot. And Paris had only the ballet. So I did ballet when I was little. So I was like, okay, one of the two. And my mom said, you went to London, go to New York. And so I arrived here July 4th, 1993. And I like to say that because it's like really.
All those fireworks were for you, Laura. For
yes, and also, it's my rebirth somehow. And then I fall in love with the city completely. And I came back for 2 summers in 94 and 95. And then in 96, there was a mix of things. Like I was doing theater, I was not happy. I felt like I was not going to go anywhere in Italy just by doing what I was doing, my work. And so I was working with very big directors, but I felt like it was difficult to achieve what I wanted to achieve just by staying there. So I said, you know what, I'm going for 9 months. And I did an internship at the kitchen, which at the time was like one of the most experimental places you could ever think of, and it was really different from my experience of traditional theater. So I came here for 9 months and I never left. And that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the one-way ticket almost.
Yeah, the one-way ticket. But and I have to say, and I say it all the time, I was able to do that also because my parents, they were supporting me in this decision. They never went against it. They never said, what are you doing? They always said, you want to stay there, you stay there. And that is something that even when my father died in 98, my mom said, you stay in New York if you want to stay in New York, which is,
it's
I always say
on their end too.
Yeah, so it's yeah, I say to parents, you really need to support your children because it's their lives, and it's important. And I am a living example that is very important.
So when you were in Italy, you were indeed with, if I remember correctly, another company, Gramaglie, and then eventually there was some little artistic, like a coincidence. You were walking in Rome, or you were looking at an exhibit where you got the inspiration for what it would become the new name of the theater company. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Le Gramaglie was, we were young and a group of friends doing theater all together. I was also working with big directors in big theaters and doing tours that were lasting 5 months. So we put together this group, and a friend of mine, Uberto Kovacevic, who is still an actor and has an acting school in Arezzo as well, said, oh, let's call it like Gramaglie. And then I don't remember why I wanted to change the name. There was something that made me thinking I need to change the name. And I went to see this exhibition at the Palazzo dell'Esposizione in Via Nazionale. And there was an exhibition on Lisippo and on the figure of Kairos, which is a fantastic figure to me, because it's the right occasion taken at the right time. So it has hair on the forehead, but doesn't have the hair in the back of his head, because you can grab your good chance when it's arriving, but not when it's leaving. It's a little bit different from Carpe Diem. It's really taking the right chance at the moment that is arriving, having the courage and not waiting to, I think a Carpe Diem is a little bit more wide as a meaning.
Okay,
and
so
this
seize
one
the
is
opportunity when it comes.
Yeah, see the right opportunity when I so I at that time there was no internet. When internet arrived, I discovered that there are so many organization named Kairos. That means that is a symbol that really is loved by so many. But it's a beautiful one. And then when I came to New York, so we started to do theater with the name Kairos. And then when I came to New York, again, we started to do theater in Italian, thanks to Mario Fratti and Valentina Fratti. They had a theater on 30th Street called the Miranda Theater. And Mario was giving for free the space to Italians on Sunday and Monday to do whatever they wanted. You couldn't move anything, but you could use the space. And so we started to do programs in Italian. And coming from Italy, I was doing what I used to do in Italy. and we started to have a good audience. So, you know, to make it more official, I put the name. The name was Kairos, and everyone was like, "Oh, so you're from Egypt?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I put the Italy in it just to say that I was not from Egypt. And then it became Kairos Italy Theater. And then one of our members, who's still a dear friend, one day she said, "Oh, when is the KIT rehearsal?" And I was like, "Who's KIT?" Kairos Italy Theater. Oh, so
the acronym was created.
yeah, it was, and now some they know us as Kairos, some KIT, some Kairos Italian Theater, some Kairos Italy Theater. But the fact is, because KIT is so famous, we just turned 23, and I was never able to change the name because everyone knows KIT. So
Yeah.
okay, that is the name forever.
So it looks like the mission of KIT is actually to create cultural exchange programs between Italy and the US and the international community as well. And so you have a variety, you know, you said at the beginning that you started with productions in Italian. But my understanding is that eventually also the programming evolved into presenting maybe Italian authors translating in English. So there is this kind of fluid movement of, you know, offering Italian theater in Italian, Italian theater in English to reach out a broader
Absolutely.
audience.
Absolutely, because at the beginning we started out in Italian. I have to say, I started to act in English only, I think it was 2014 or 2015. I didn't have the courage to do anything in English. But yeah, we started with Italian. And then, even though most of my members, they spoke perfect English, and they still speak perfect English. Then we did bilingual. And that is something that we don't do anymore, which is a shame because it was the double theater. So a first act, presented in English with one cast and one director, then intermission, and presented the same one act in Italian with another cast and another director. And it was really good to do that because you could see the same show but in different languages at the same time because we were selling it as one show. And then we started to do really theater in translation. Our company, Kairos Italy Theater, is all about Italy, Italian author from the past to the contemporary scene of theater in Italy. And so, but we translate and we show what the beauty of Italian theater to the American audience, and not only because we travel a lot. So,
and also you serve as a vector to give exposure to maybe less well-known playwrights, Italian playwrights who might not be as known in Italy as well. You have some awards or some competitions, is that correct?
Yes, so I will say that 99% of the playwrights, the Italian playwrights, are not known in America. 99.9%, I would say. There are some cases, for instance, if you take Stefano Massini, which now with the Lehman trilogy, you know, it won the Tony Awards, the show that was done in London, so it was adapted by someone else. But anyway, he was here, he received the award as well. They did 3 shows of, because he's a very prolific playwright. They did 2 or 3 other plays by Stefano Massini. One off Broadway and I think 2 off Broadway, but that's it. End of story. And now we don't, I mean, it's like it's gone. They do sometime Pirandello. They do sometime now, very rarely, Dario Fo. And it's interesting that they do a lot of commedia dell'arte. Here there is, you know, this idea, commedia dell'arte is the Italian theater, but they don't do Goldoni. which is interesting. It's very rare to see Goldoni. And even Edoardo De Filippo, which was more done when I came here 27 years ago than now. So there is a lot to choose from. Really, there is a lot. And so we have the classics like, the Mandrake Route, La Mandragola, the Decameron, or the Worth of Women in Merito delle Donne, which was a discovery for me as well, because I didn't know about this book published in 1600 about how women are more worth it than men if they're given the same chance than men. And it's an incredible book. And we are in residence at Casa Italiana Zerilli Marimò, which, if you see the video, is behind, is my background. And I was just given the book by Stefano Albertini, the director. He said, do something with it. And I didn't know. And I'm Italian, and I studied in Italy, and I did, Liceo Classico, I did classical studies, and I did the University Lettere. I didn't know about this book. So there is also this opportunity to discover more. And then we do the contemporary. The contemporary, we have the big names, Flaiano, Francavalleri. We did the Buzzati once. And then we have the contemporary alive, let's say. And we give an award within In Scena Italian Theater Festival, New York. We give the Mario Fratti Award because Mario was such a part of our walk into the theater world in New York. And the award is translation, the reading during the festival, that is usually in May, then publication, and then an off production. So the playwright can see how it works in front of an American audience. And it's been very interesting to see the different plays working on on a New York stage. And actually one of these plays is going to London in 2 weeks, is going to open in a very important festival for independent theater, the Vault Festival. And is because it was done in New York that the translator, which is Carlotta Brentano, is a collaborator since 2010, and she's also the director of this particular play. She's already there. I think she started rehearsal yesterday or today. So it's this wish to bring Italian theater, and not only to bring Italian theater to the States, but to make understanding the American audience, not only the audience, also the theater makers, that Italian theater is not a different kind of theater. It's theater. And if it's a play is good, it's good.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I went, when I was living in Turkey, my husband and I went to a play. Obviously, he's a native speaker and I wasn't, but and my Turkish is very limited. At some point, I didn't feel that there was a language barrier. The acting was so involving, and there were so many emotions released. And I just had asked my husband a little synopsis just to figure out initially who was who. But I was amazed, and that is correct. And so you obviously involved in a lot of different programs and productions. And obviously when I stumble upon these pictures of yours and about the ABCs, although I'm also a teacher of Italian, I would love to come and learn Italian from you. Can you tell?
No, it's not me. This is Professor Margherita.
Absolutely.
Don't say because she may come and be not nice to you. She's a diva professor.
Okay, she's a diva professor. So what could this is a program, a traveling program. You have done it with many schools, and not only just in your area in New York. You have indeed traveled DC, New Jersey, Florida, Long Island, maybe even Pittsburgh at some point in the future.
I hope so.
What can the audience expect from this diva teacher?
So she has her own method. This is a performance, I want to say. I want to point out, because I remember years ago, I don't remember where I was doing it, and some people said, oh, this is ridiculous. Learning Italian in 1 hour. And I was like, it's a performance.
Let's set the expectations
is
right.
the joke. But anyway, so she goes ABC, that means A come amore, B come buono, e C come città. And it's based on it's based on a sketch by my friend Umberto Kovacevic, who I mentioned earlier, who is about this. There is an homicide, and you have 6 witnesses, but one is from Udine, one is from Milan, one is from Florence, one is from Rome, one is from Napoli, and one is from Palermo. So they have a different way to tell the story. And that is in Italian.
You play also with dialects or pronunciation?
Yeah. And so that is the end, but it goes into the beginning. The beginning is really this diva teacher, the great Professor Margherita, who teaches a little bit about the fact that Italy was not just a big country, and we've been so different, and we're still very different in the way we speak, in the way we love, in the way we eat, and in the way we witness an homicide. And so it's all about that, is traveling through Italy and showing the differences. And it's a funny play. It's really a funny one-person show, and is and one of the things that I love most is that the audience laugh a lot, and we have fun. And at the end, some of them, they were like, oh, now I understand better the differences, which was not my really goal at the beginning when I did it the first time. But it's and it's funny. I think I told you that yesterday that is one of these shows. Now is a there was a pandemic, so but now is a while that I'm not doing it. But it's the show that I bring around. Like it's like the easiest show to bring around, and it's been for years. I've been asked to do the show, so it's the only show that I don't promote at all. because
we come and find you.
Which is a shame, because it's very funny. I was even asked to do a second show with Professor Margherita, and yes, she's a character. The only thing is I was thinking about it, and then I never did it, because now I'm doing, I'm focusing on something else. But maybe sooner or later there will be a second show. I'm thinking that there may be a second show. One of my latest focus after the Worth of Women is really, it was interesting because 2017 was the Worth of Women. In 2018 I was commissioned by Vassar College to do a show on Elena Cornaro Piscopia, the first PhD in the world, 1678. And so after that, I was like, it's very interesting to discover lives of women, Italian women that are really unknown. We did the Worth of Women in Italian this past summer in Italy. And people was like, wow, where did you find the text? I was like, it's an Italian book. No one knows about it. And everyone was like, is Italian? Yeah, it's Italian. You can find it. You don't find it easily, but it's incredible. And Elena Cornaro, also, I do this performance with a violinist, Ludovica Burtone, which is a jazz violinist, fantastic. And she and is about the story of Elena and everything that went inside her, and there is this dialogue with the violin. So, and now we are doing a lecture performance on Adelaide Ristori, which is another great, it was the first diva, but also she was traveling, which to me is amazing. In 1800, the middle of 1800, she was traveling from Europe to Australia, to South America, to North America, and performing in Italian, in French, and in English. And so I want to really put some light on all those women that did so much and they're very little known.
And so comes 2020, as I said, probably those 2 years that were everyone had to find also their coping mechanism to go through the pandemic. A lot of great research, books, I don't want to call them projects. That's what I was looking for, came to life. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a little bit how also Tutti in Scena was born around. We can give him a birth date of about 2020, when you received the good news that you were awarded the prestigious grant for documentary on Italian Americans by the Russo brothers. And along with Luca, you guys, went back and forth a little bit about proposing a topic that then you brought forward that would shed light on the origins of Italian theater in New York.
Yes. Basically, Luca Martera, 2020 was supposed to be our 20th anniversary. We had so many things planned. And well, of course we did very 1%, because until March we were able to do something, and then we all know what happened. But before that, Luca was like, oh, why don't you celebrate with a documentary? Okay, let's say that I've never made a documentary in my life. I'm a theater person. I have no idea about video. I know now I have to know something because of self-tapes, but otherwise I reject video. I am a theater person. And so Luca said, yeah, there is this grant, but you have to talk about Italian American themes. And years earlier, I had discovered Farfariello. I had discovered other authors, other actors. It was a fascinating story to me. Never thought of doing anything, but a fascinating story. So we started to talk, and we did he did a subject that I changed a little bit, because I wanted the company of today to talk about the actors of yesterday. And then yes, I won the grant. At that point, we were in full pandemic. And so it was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I started to look into internet and to find traces. And it's very sad to say that there's not so much. And what there is very scattered. Everywhere. A lot of books are out of print. I found them in eBay, and it's been interesting to do everything on internet. But because I was able to access also places that were far from me, and I met some of the protagonists through internet. I met the granddaughter of the grandson. But it was an interesting process. And then in 2021, so the grant goes that once you receive the money, you have 4 months or 5 months, I don't remember correctly, 5 or 4 months to do the documentary and give it to the Russo Brothers Film Forum, so they can choose the first 3. And I waited until June 2021 because of the pandemic. And then I shot in June and in July, but just 1 week in June and 1 week in July, that's it. And then I have in my company, I will say in my family, I have all these wonderful talents that are not just actors, but are directors, editors, cameramen. So they all came and helped. And Casa Italiana then said, you know, we are going to support as well the documentary. So I had more money to pay everyone and to do everything I wanted to do. And then we did it, and we edited it in 1 month in August. And again, I never done a documentary in my life, so I didn't know what I was doing. Emanuele Secci was an actor. We met in 1996. We are still friends. We are still acting together. He's a director and editor. He really hold my hand and say, okay, this is what we do. This is how you do a film. This is because I was like in theater. So, oh no, we try, we think. And he was like, no, there's no time to try or think, you do. And I was like, no, I can't. So, you know, it was he was very good with me because sometimes I know I was very difficult. Also, I was scared because when you don't know anything, you have no idea what to do, really.
Well, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like in the.
But and my surprise was at the end of September receiving the email that I was the finalist. I was like, what? But and this is to say that it's the passion, I think, that I put into the work, because I find, as I do with the women, I want to shed light to the women. I wanted to give light to this part of history that is completely left out and we don't talk about. And they were doing a great job for the community. It was not just theater. It was bringing together the community, talking about their problems through theater and raising money for important causes or for, tragedies that happen like now in Turkey. So they were doing things through the theater and they were coming together through the theater. So the theater had a real social meeting, which unfortunately doesn't have today. Like it was really vital. You've seen the documentary. There is Naham Sado, which is she's a professor of Yiddish theater, one of the major experts, and she was saying that immigrants were eating bread smeared with theater. They prefer to save money to eat less, but going to the theater because it was making them feel better.
And then, let's go into, the actual documentary, because also one thing that I got out of the conversation also with this professor is that the Italians also brought the theater tradition that was already pretty strong. So, the immigration brought both the immigrants and the performers and the audience, so to speak. And as you said, the theater was indeed a vital part of their lives, of their coming together and being a community. If we look at 88 Mulberry, can we trace back some names that people should be familiar with as they might wanted to find out more information? Who could, what name would you associate as being a pillar back in those times for the first amateur theater?
Well, the first one, there is Guglielmo Ricciardi, who is interesting because he wrote his bio, but which again also out of print. And La Ricciardiana, and is and it's not clear why he arrived to New York, but he arrived and he started to work with the amateur companies. And one was on 88 Mulberry Street, which was the Banca Malzone, which you find in all the images, the most iconic images of Little Italy of the time, of late 1800, is the Banca Malzone. You can see the sign Banca Malzone. And so Fausto Malzone was a banker in the building that he owns. He had a travel agency, a winery, or a wine shop, I should say, and some rooms that he gave to this amateur company that was doing shows to get money for, as we said, for to send to Italy.
Really?
For different reasons. And so Guglielmo Ricciardi was though a professional actor. So after that, he started to know the community, and he was living in Brooklyn. And then another banca, La Banca Sessa, gave him the opportunity to have his own company and to do a show in Brooklyn, a show in Neapolitan, because Lo Ritorno da Buenos Aires, because most of the population there was Neapolitan. But to me, the most important one is Antonio Maiori, which did what we are doing now, bringing the theater that he used to do in Europe, because he was traveling Europe with Ermete Zacconi, that was a famous actor like Eleonora Duse, was like the major actor. He was touring Europe with different kind of plays, like the regular plays, not the plays in dialect, even though he was Sicilian. And so he started to do Shakespeare, he started to do Feydeau, he started to do Molière, he started to do the theater that he was doing in Europe. And he was, you can find traces of him at Folger Library in Washington that is dedicated to Shakespeare. So he was a character. I mean, he had many partners and a lot of children. And his granddaughter, who just died a few days ago, Olga Cardalonga. Yes, Olga died a few days ago. She was 101, and she was fantastic. And she said in the documentary, she remembers her grandfather all dressed in white, very, fancy and feeling like a diva. And you could tell, but those are the names. Of course, and then there is Farfariello, Edoardo Migliaccio.
There was Edoardo Migliaccio.
Yes.
Now, Farfariello also brings, as I said, we have the Neapolitan dialect, we have the Italian, we have some sort of Ital-English, where he actually documented some language that doesn't exist anymore. And his grandsons do have a collection of a lot of the memorabilia, a lot of the masks. And so the preservation of that material is going to be also very important.
Yeah, and this is when we showed the documentary at Casa Italiana on January 30th, everyone was there. And Richard Migliaccio, who is the grandson who was really archiving everything, was saying he just did a website just to, say, I exist and this material exists. But he was saying, I don't know where to give the costumes, I don't know where to give the wigs, the masks, and et cetera, because a lot of visual material went to Minnesota. The immigration center is in Minnesota, I think. I always confuse the state, but so they got something, but they couldn't get everything. And he has an amazing basement that is a museum. I think he should, open a museum because it's so beautiful and so precious. And he was saying, I don't know what to do. The same with the granddaughter of Olga. And she was saying, and actually I have some stuff here with me in my house because I promised to take care of those, a couple of scripts and pictures. And she would say, I am the only one caring about these, and after me, no one will care in my family. So I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, I'm glad I did the documentary. At least there is something, and I'm glad that Richard is doing a website. I did a website for the documentary that I'm very, with all the things I'm doing, it's always behind schedule. But I want to put everything to point out people, if you're looking for something, you can find, material here, material there, you can get this website, you can get material in this library, or there are the great granddaughters and sons of this actor. And there are so many stories, Viviana, so many stories. That is incredible. It will take, Joseph Shora of CUNY told me, you know what, this is the first of 12 episodes. And I will argue that it could be the first of 30, 50 episodes, because each person brought so much. There is my next project, because I want to do now the second documentary, is on the women, which I didn't know that they were, beside mothers and wives, they were the administrators of all these companies.
And we'll get to the women. I just wanted to spend another 2 seconds talking about because these might be names that no one is familiar with. So I just wanted to, and at least they were not familiar to me when I watched the documentary the first time around, and then the second and the third time around with a notebook and a pen to write this name. So what did Farfariello and his art represent? What was unique about his art?
He took the macchiette, which is a Neapolitan, let's say at the beginning of 1900, a form of theater that was really done in varietà, where you get, macchietta means a little spot, because you take the characteristics of a little spot of people, and you make it into one person. So a person, certain people that speaks in a certain way, or walk in a certain way, or talk about something. So it's a little spot. So they did the macchiette in Naples, and he was from Cava dei Tirreni. He did some macchiette in Naples, but he made the characters, the protagonists of his macchiette, which are called macchiette coloniali, are the people from Mulberry Street. He went to America, and he worked in Pennsylvania and he was writing letters for the Italians to send back to Italy. And so he got so many stories, so many, the way they were speaking, which I will argue, said that there's not anymore. I actually speak like that, because we say, fare la laundry, or prendere l'elevator. So it's not so different. But then, and he made it into this survey of Italians at that time. Not only the way they were speaking or they were feeling, but what they were doing. There is the character that I do, because I did it for the Italian American, the big documentary, PBS documentary. The piece that you see me doing, Farfariello, is from Italian American by John Maggio. I didn't get the final cut. I was not in the final cut, but I did for them. So I have this beautiful shooting of me doing Farfariello. And Pasquale Passaguaie tells us the story of this worker that goes from Pennsylvania to New York. And he really goes into all the troubles possible, because there's no work unions, there's no worker rights, is treated badly. He loses 2 fingers. But at the end, they stole him things from him, and so forth. But at the end, he says, I am proud because in the buildings, there is the strength of this worker, this one. And it's so it's another again, the value of discovering this history is also discovering not only, we're not talking about theater only, we are talking about the community and the people who were there and our ancestors, the people who came here.
Mhm. And it eventually also, you know, these playwright were also very socially conscious. You know, the theater became also a place where they could maybe talk about events, criticize the events. The monologues about Il Pezzente, it's fantastic, and you know, it's denouncing the system, and talks about the prisoner who gives this monologue to explain his crime, being poor. It is amazing.
And it's amazing, and it's very long, but it is really incredible. And again, it was a way to, when the rights of workers didn't exist. If you think that the triangle
Factory shirt, yeah, we had
fire was 1911. So we don't have before many rights. We don't have rights actually, and so they were saying, you know, we need some rights. We need. You need to look at us. There is all this stuff. I just got a couple of sentences in the documentary where he's talking about trying even to ask for money in the street and no one looks at him. Actually, they walk away because they're afraid. They don't want to, you know, be bothered by him. So it's a beautiful, 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 very long and very beautiful piece. And it was done before the shows because there were longer shows.
Mm-hmm.
The theater was like an entire night
from 7 to midnight.
Yes.
So yeah, and also it was I believe you indicate that, and we talked about it, the theater becoming a family event. So there was free entrance for women and children, which it was not typical to in those times to have women's event. And I think we can, so it was very family centric type of experience. As a last topic of our conversation, let's talk about the women that were not just the wives. The women wore different hats. They were an intrinsic part of the organizations, but also actors and producers.
Producers and impresario, administrators of all the companies, and Antonietta Pisanielli, which is really one of the women I want to focus next. She went to San Francisco to establish the biggest Italian theater at the time, and she got first one building, then she got a bigger building, and she brought the companies from the East Coast. She produced her own theater. It seems that the Coppola's grandfather wrote plays for the company. Is for sure Tina Modotti started there as an actress. So it's incredible. Again, we think of immigrants. First of all, we think that, you know, immigrants dirty and ignorant. They come here, they work, and they go home. That's it. Not true. They had a very busy and alive life, cultural life. And then we think of the women. They're always portrayed either their mothers and wives staying home, or they're workers that they go home, they go from home to work and work to home, or they are, you know, entertainers, let's put it this way. So you never see these women celebrated the way they're supposed to be. There is the wife of Nicola Sacco, Rosina Sacco, is beautiful woman, was a very famous actress in in the community. And she was, even after her husband died, she kept doing the theater to raise money for the cause. So, you know, it's, I think really that through the women, we will discover more and more. And I cannot wait.
Absolutely. So so at what stage is your documentary? Because is it just, you have actually shown it in Rome just recently.
Yeah.
So how or when would the general public be able to access the documentary?
Well, I am looking to bring it around and showing it around. Of course, I'm eager to showing it to Italian American communities, because I don't think they know about this story, and I think they will love to know about this story. I think that it's good for them to know about this story. And then yesterday I was talking with an university here in New York that they're interested in buying the documentary for their collection. So I'm trying to slowly, now we have it in English, and the parts in Italian, they have the subtitles in English, and in Italian, where the parts in Italian don't have the subtitles. So, I mean, we have the subtitles in Italian for the English parts. So we have, in Italy and in the English world, it's possible to see it, to watch it without problem. And so that is where I am. And any request, if someone wants to show it, we showed it at Boca Raton at the University of Florida. And then by via Zoom, which is not ideal, because Zoom is not really working, you know, doing it through internet, unless you do it through a projector, you put it in a computer, it could be. And I would love to travel with it and talk to the communities and explain how important is this part of history, and that they should pay attention to it.
Yeah, because as we mentioned several times now, theater, a little bit like also the talking fountains in Rome, or the Commedia dell'arte, that was what was happening in society. You know, it was not just scripts that were written hundreds and hundreds of years ago of some Greek tragedies. That reflected, was a true reflection of the themes and the struggles of the immigrants.
Absolutely.
So.
If you think you know, we talk about Farfariello, but there is also Francesco Ricciardi, who was the king of Pulcinella. He wrote farces about putting Pulcinella in America. So there's different experiences. And Pulcinella is having experiences as an immigrant, but it's Pulcinella. So, you know, he has his own way to talk and to dress, but he has these experiences. It's not as you said, the usual plays or farces that they were doing. And another thing, if I may add, if we have time, is that Antonio Maiori, that I mentioned before, he was collaborating with the Yiddish theater. And they were renting out the same theater and doing the same Shakespeare with the same set, one night in Yiddish, one night in Italian, to split the costs. And it's something, and I tell this always to my colleagues here in New York. It's like, we don't do that. And the costs now are so outrageous sometimes that we should start doing that. We should start thinking of doing something similar.
Yeah.
And they were collaborating, something, again, we don't think that, you know, these different ethnicities were collaborating. There are few things, but we don't really look into that. And there were a lot of collaborations. There were a lot of collaborations in politics, but it's a different subject. And I feel like that Italian Americans, they it will be great for them to travel all these subjects and really give light and recognition to all these people.
Absolutely. So, well, unfortunately, our time is up. Il Big Ben ha detto stop. It's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning in to the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any travel topics you would like us to address, please contact us at the italianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, please visit our website at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org and click on the Italian Radio Hour tab, or where you catch your favorite podcasts. We would like to thank our guest, Laura Caparrotti, our sponsor, Istituto Mondo Italiano, and Alla Boara for the music. And if you're not living in the Pittsburgh area, or you might be out of town, remember, you can always catch our episodes also on our YouTube channel at theitalianradiohour.com. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.